So are you feeling burned out at work? Well, you're not alone, and the World Health Organization feels your pain. The United Nations agency is updating its definition of burnout, calling it a syndrome and linking it to unmanaged workplace stress. WHO defines the condition as, quote, feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job and reduced professional efficacy. It's not a medical condition, but an occupational phenomenon. All right, let's bring in an expert, our friend, clinical psychologist, Dr. Jeffrey Gardier. Doc, welcome back to Chasing News. How are you?
I'm doing well, Bill. Thank you.
All right, this sounds like something that pretty much everybody at some point has gone through with their job. I meet very few people that don't say at one point, I hate my job. Is it anything really more than that?
No, I think this is something that is much, much more. We all have issues with our jobs. Sometimes you have a little bit of a temporary burnout, or we get really agitated, or we just are done with it for a while. We take a vacation and we come back. Here, I think we're looking at more of a chronic type of phenomenon having to do with occupation. And here, we see that the person completely breaks down as to when it comes to their job, they just cannot function there at all.
Let me ask you, Doc, as a professional, and for the record, with my bosses watching, I love my job, very little stress ever on set. But Doc, is it really so focused on the job, or is it internal for the person?
Well, right now, what the World Health Organization is talking about is something that is specifically about the job, and maybe people at the job might contribute to this person's burnout. But you ask a very fascinating question. Some of these people may have other issues, pre-existing issues with anxiety or depression or other mental health challenges, if you will.
Got it. All right, Doc. Great to talk to you. Thanks for the insight.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in tonight's A-plus panel and see what they think of this. Jeanette Hoffman, Republican strategist, back with us. Good to see you, Jeanette.
Thanks, Bill.
And Afia Yunus, immigration attorney. Good to see you, Afia.
You too, Bill.
All right, Jeanette, I'm going to start with you on this. I think this could be better named the WIMP syndrome. This seems completely and utterly absurd to me. What do you think?
Well, on the one hand, I do think there is legitimate burnout, people with very, very high stress careers. On the other hand, I think it's how people manage their stress. And I think this whole syndrome that they're talking about, people are going to use it as an excuse to go to their employer and say, look, my psychiatrist says I have burnout. I need to take a month off and go to a spa and go to a resort. I think it's a little bit ridiculous, Bill.
Afia, is the problem here that we have, it's almost like we've got this movement in society to say you have a right to be stress-free, to be anxiety-free. What about teaching people to actually cope with anxiety and stress?
But I think that's what this can do, is it's actually acknowledging something that really does exist. And I don't think it can happen to everybody. I think people have predispositions to certain psychological illnesses and mental disease, and I think that's something that we can acknowledge as a society. And that's what we can do. Now that we know this exists, we can create coping mechanisms.
The World Health Organization said we are calling this an occupational phenomenon, not a medical condition. So I think a couple things. One, again, aren't we just basically saying, hey, we're human, we're going to deal with stress. So instead of telling you how to fight back, we're going to let you use this as an excuse.
No, absolutely not. I think stress is a symptom of burnout, and burnout includes high levels of stress, high levels of anxiety, negativism, and there's like 17 different symptoms of burnout. So I don't think it's one that can be the whole thing.
You have burnout, you have to cope with it. What do? You know, in the real world, most of us have stress coming from so many different parts of our lives, not just our employer, right? You have to manage it.
Life is tough. It's a little hard. Toughen up.